Welcome to our Flutter workshop. Today our guide, Michael Bora, will walk us through Flutter application so that we all can be ready for using Flutter, implementing Flutter, either in our personal projects or for the solution challenge. As a reminder, for those who are willing to participate to the solution challenge, you can use our Discord channel to make up some teams. So I'm going to be sharing the link just right now in the chat. And yes, you can. This workshop will be recorded. And then this is also as a reminder, this is a 2-day workshop. So tomorrow at the same time, we will be here. Thank you, and I will give the floor to our lovely guide, Michael Bora. You can.
Hey, thank you, Eminiz. So she did all the explaining that needs to be done, I guess. But, just to give a brief overview of what we'll be doing today. Again, oh, by the way, let me, I guess, introduce myself a bit. I'm Bora. I'm the president of ACM, and Eminiz reached out for a collaboration for this workshop, and we happily accepted. So this is, let me plug ACM as well, right? I guess I have to do it. This is a joint event, sort of. So yeah, again, to go over what we'll be doing today. First, I'll be explaining what Flutter is and why we use it, where we use it, how we use it. I'm hoping if you were planning on installing Flutter, you have done so for this workshop, because we won't have time for that. And also, I don't really know what kinds of machines you're using, so I won't be able to provide help. But then after that, I'll be showing you, what it looks like to develop an app in Flutter. What the process is as a whole, and then we'll start with the starter app. Whenever you create a new app in Flutter, it gives you a starter app, and we'll be dissecting that. And afterwards, we'll be writing our own app. So let's dive right in, unless you have any questions at this point. Also, let me just say, so I want this entire workshop to be like a really chill sort of space, because truth be told, everything I'll be telling you, there are people on YouTube who are better tutors than me, but the difference here is you can ask questions. So if I were you, I would just leave my microphone on and just ask questions whenever I felt like it. So you can interrupt me, please interrupt me. If you're missing anything, even if it feels like you should be missing anything, just ask and I'll answer happily. So with that said, unless there are any questions right now, I'll begin. Seems like no, so let's dive right in. So these links, if you could just reshare them in the chat. I'll be just showing you some general resources, starting with the Flutter website. So what is Flutter? Flutter is a UI framework that you can use to build for not only mobile devices, but also for Windows, Linux, the web, and macOS. So really what you have is a single code base for 6 different targets. So this is what that refers to. The advantages of Flutter, or why we choose to use it, is well, firstly that you can, it's a very very flexible sort of platform that you can use to develop for many different targets, but also it does it in a very efficient manner. So one of the key points at Flutter is, if you go to this section right here, it is actually converting everything to sorry, not here. So if you go to mobile, it will actually convert your code to I guess they changed the screen, so it was different anyway. Oh yeah, here we go, sorry. So it does compile to machine code, so that means you don't have like a Java VM sort of situation going on, and your app runs very fast. It's smaller, you don't have any sort of overhead that you have to deal with. And to be honest, the main point for me is it's fun. Not only is it flexible and very performant, it's fun to develop, and it's actually something that they too emphasize. So that's really the gist of it. people often compare it to React and whatnot, especially with Flutter 2 having, I'm not sure where they, so I think here, if you go to this page, oh no, that's not it. Anyway, so especially with Flutter 2 being here, you have, yeah, they don't really show it here. Anyway, so the web thing I talked about, it's sort of interesting and it's sort of new. It just got out of beta, and people often, think about, is React better for the web or Flutter? In my personal opinion, I've used both. I think you should go with React if that's your goal right now. But would I like to develop an app, web app with Flutter? I would love to. So that's the sort of the space Flutter is in right now, right? So people really like it. People that use it really love it. But in terms of like industry adoption, it's just not there yet for most applications. But it's not because it's bad. It's just new, right? Just keep that in mind. There are lots of advantages to it. There are some disadvantages to it, but just do your research and decide on that. Whatever you're trying to do, it will. It depends on what you're trying to do. Is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so that's the gist of it. So how do we start? This is the link I believe I shared with you for installation. You can always just go to Flutter's website and under development, learn. You can actually choose your level. So we'll be beginning with beginner. And you can find this link there. So really anything you click here will take you to this place anyway. So for us right now, I have macOS. So that's what I will show you, like just really fast. You install this SDK, unzip it, export it to your path. This is all standard stuff for any new language that you will be using. And then you have this Flutter Doctor thing that I will get to in a second. But before continuing, let's just take a step back and actually talk about what Flutter actually refers to, right? So Flutter isn't a language; it's a framework, and the language it's built on is Dart. So this is like a separate thing from Flutter. To be completely honest with you, I'm not sure where Dart is used like elsewhere other than Flutter. But they are really hand in hand, and just so you know, whenever you're stuck in something, you don't know how to do something, just don't search for how do I do this in Dart. Just say Flutter because that's how everyone refers to it. And then you have your packages at pub.dev. This is where you will be using. This is the website you'll be using to find packages, mostly like libraries. Like let's say we want to add like a date picker to our app, right? You could just do it by hand, or if you search for a date picker, like say this one, you can really easily just add stuff to your app just like that. This is like one of the advantages Flutter has. They will actually review and pick their favorites, and you can use pretty much like Google approved stuff here as well. Right. So and finally, the material design language. This is like a default in Flutter. You can use like native styles. So if you're developing an app for iOS, you can actually use the Cupertino, the design language. But by default, we're going to be using material. So when does this become relevant? So you should be, as a developer, you should be like trying to provide the best sort of user interface in terms of usability, accessibility, and things like that. And this really provides you a guideline. And also you have these like icons. For instance, whenever we'll be adding, like, say you want to refresh icon, or an upload icon, you can search for it here. We will be doing that. I will show you this later. So let's not dive in too deep right now. So in general, this is what it is. These are the parts, like resources you will be using. And then there's also Stack Overflow, obviously. But yeah, this is like the overview. Right, so then the meats and potatoes, right? This is the development environment you will have. If you're using VS Code, if you're using Android Studio, it will be sort of similar to this, but not the same. So up to this point is the stuff that's, I was at least hoping you already had a look at. So now I'll kind of slow down. And maybe if you have questions about what I just told you, I guess not really, but if you have them, ask them now. Okay, I guess not. So, okay, let's just dial down a bit. So when you're developing with Flutter, you need to see what you're doing, right? You need to launch the app and sort of work on it actively. That's what we use the simulator for. So in macOS, I'm right now using the iOS simulator. In Windows, I don't believe you have that, at least not unless you hack it somehow. You will probably use either the web targets to like simulate your stuff, or the Android emulator. I think it's called Android Virtual Device. All that stuff is under install, and again, if you just go through it on your own time, I'm sure you'll figure it out. It's generally pretty easy. But if you do have any problems, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. Not right now, but I will provide. I'll just drop my email address so you can ask your questions. All right. So, but this is what it looks like, right? So we have our code base here. This is so you maybe if you could share the GitHub repo I made for this as well. So all of this is this code. We have 2 apps right now. This is just for today. The ones for tomorrow, I haven't really done yet. We'll just go like freestyle tomorrow. But what's everything I'm showing today, it is on GitHub. It's not really advanced stuff anyway. This is just the tutorials they give you. But if you feel stuck, you can just use this. Right. So how do we begin? So this is the start app that I was talking about. It's running right now. But before even like just doing this, let's assume we're starting from scratch, right? So we're in VS Code in this directory. Let's say I want to create a new Flutter app, right? We're starting from scratch. Let's just get rid of this, right? Okay. So it's really easy to create a project. You just type Flutter. Oh, and before we do that, of course, the doctor thing. So this is what it does is it just checks if everything's in working order. It's a really nice feature because it sort of gives you, it just scans your entire system and checks if everything's in order. So it will check if you have like your ID installed, if you have accepted like the licenses you have to accept. And you can see the only warning it gives me is Android Studio is not installed. To be honest, I recommend VS Code if you are already used to it. But if you don't use VS Code, or if you prefer like specialized IDEs, so if you are the type of person that uses PyCharm and like IDEA, then you probably do want Android Studio because it is also built on the JetBrains, like I would say API, or yeah. So it is like it uses the same platform as PyCharm and whatnot. Android Studio. So if you're used to that, I recommend it. But VS Code is my choice. So it just says this issue, so we're fine, and we can create our first app. So let's say Flutter create, and then whatever name you want to give it. So let's say just Flutter app, right? We press enter. It will take only a couple of seconds. You can see it's already here. It says it's running Flutter Widgets. Don't be confused by it for now. We will go over it in a bit, but in about like 5 seconds, it should be fine. 6.5, I was close. So when you go over this, you can see there are lots of different types of files, but really all you have to worry about is this lib folder and this pub/spec YAML file. Everything else you can just forget about for now. So our source code is inside this lib folder, and all you have right now is main.dart. This is the start app I was talking about. And just for like time's sake, since that was already running, I will go back to it because it does take a minute to launch the app, and I don't want to have that awkward silence there while it's launching. But when it starts, you will have all these comments, and yeah, it is really self-explanatory, literally. But I have deleted the comments for now, just so you're not confused. So this is the exact same app. Just with the comments removed. Okay, so I just switched to this. This is the one in the repo, and it's called Starter App. Right. So before diving into the code, let's just try to visually examine what's going on. So when you look at the screens, maybe if you want to, like, this is a good time to actually, like, join in and maybe correct me a bit if you think, you know, I'm not going into enough detail. But what I see is mainly three things, right? Three sort of clusters here. So you have this app bar, you have some text in the center, and you have this button. If anyone wants to contest me right now, go ahead. I mean, obviously, I'm saying there is something else, but we will get to it anyway, so don't worry. Right, so how does this work though, right? So how do we actually show anything on here? Let's take it step by step. So when you collapse all of this, you can see there are like four main parts, right? And this import statement. So the first one is simply run app. This is like the boilerplate stuff you have. You don't need to worry about writing this, remembering this, but all it does is it runs this, whatever this is, right? It is just like a entry points function. But this my app is actually declared here. So let's take a look at what that does. Right, so a bit confusing, but not too bad so far. So we have this sort of constructor, it talks about some keys, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And you have this build method, returns what widget, whatever that is, right? And then it returns a material app. Okay, so this is a lot of stuff just right out of the gate. But believe me, it's pretty simple. We will break this down in like the following 60 seconds and you will understand all of it, I promise. So, okay, in Flutter, everything is a widget. Anything you're seeing on the screen, including the entire screen itself, like everything is a widget. This app bar is a widget, this text inside is a widget, this text, this button, this icon inside this button, and even the whatever is telling this text to be in the center, that is also a widget. Everything is a widget, and you have like parents and children widgets. So that's like the main thing in Flutter. So by that logic, this entire app is also a widget. So don't worry about the stateless thing and stateful thing right now. Just, it is a widget. That's what you should be focusing on. And in context of that, let's see again what this method does. So this is the constructor of like just a class, but you can think of this build method as the constructor of a widget. So this is this method, this build method, every widget has to have it. And in fact, if you comment this out, you will see that it will complain. It will say missing concrete implementation of the build method. If you say quick fix, it will create an empty build method. Just undo that and see then what type of widget it creates. So the type of widget it creates is a material app, which is the, if you remember the material design language, design system I showed you, this is what material refers to. It has a title, not to be confused with this title. This is like the name of the app, not the text that's shown here. You have some theme data. You can already see it says blue, so it's probably related to this. In fact, if we change this to red, you can see it will update. Let's go. You can do it. Yeah, there we go. It shouldn't have taken that long, but anyway, it took almost 3 seconds. So usually it's like less than a second. What is that, by the way? How did I do it that fast? We'll talk about it as well. I didn't need to relaunch the app. So let's take it back to blue because this is kind of disgusting. So the next thing you have is, so you have title, theme, home. These are all the parameters of material app. If you hover over it, you can see there's many more. But home is like your home screen, right? The first screen you served. You cannot, of course, change whatever this is for later, but in this case, we have something called my homepage, and wouldn't you know it? It's declared right here. So let's take a look at that. So this is a stateful widget. Am I going too fast? If I am, please tell me. So we have this stateful widget, and what does that mean? So let's talk about state. Has anyone here developed in React before? Just yes or no in chat. I guess no. that is interesting. Okay, that's fine. Because it's fine because what I was going to tell you is it's nothing like the states in React. So I guess it's better you have nothing to be confused about. Right. So state refers to things that change in the way that this app bar, when we declare it, the title, we do not expect it to change, right? It can be stateless. But this button, maybe I should have pressed the actual button, right, and see what it does. So what it does is it increases this counter, and that is what requires state, and that's why this is a stateful widget. So we'll get back to it. Just for now, just know that that's why it's there. But you know why it's there in terms of what it does, I will explain in a second. Right. So the main difference between having a stateful and stateless widget in terms of like the syntax is the code that actually draws the widget will be inside the state, which is kind of weird. It confused me a bit in the beginning, but just like, let me put it this way. So if you type stful and click enter, it will create like a boilerplate code for you. Hold on. And let's type like my widget, right? So that's all here is like all the things in here is basically like it's coming from this. So you have the again constructor like up here in the stateless widgets, and then you have this create state call which creates a state. So you can think of it like this build method is inside the state and we're calling the state instead of having the build method right inside. You don't need to understand this, just know that it's there, and you know, try not to be confused about it. You know, try, I guess. Not sure if you'll be successful because I was confused about it for a long time. Right, so let's remove this thing I just created and go back to what was already here. So again, here you can see it also has this constructor that we had just a second ago, but it also has this field called title. And you can actually see, we say this title is required, and we're actually passing it here. And if you are paying attention, you can see that this is exactly the same as this. So there's probably a connection there, right? But you don't really see anything that tells the app bar to draw it here. In fact, we don't even know where the app bar is declared, right? So that's the next step. When you say create states, which is also the override, like the method you need to override for stateful widgets, it's sort of like the build method of stateful widgets again. So when you go in here, let's collapse like this. Oh, that's just on one, sorry. Anyway, don't look at this yet. So we have the state and the build method inside the state. So this is what actually builds this entire screen. Because like, if you look at it, we do have a build method for this my app thing, but it doesn't really like draw anything, right? You don't see any like text declared here, like any buttons declared. So all it does is like, it doesn't really provide anything. In fact, if you just say like an empty container here, it will just go to white, I believe, or black, yeah. So everything is contained in my homepage state here. So this build method is what we're going to be like modifying for later on. Let me just, yeah, hot reload. So, okay, so before we change anything here, or like try to go into more detail, let me just like talk about hot reloads and hot restarts. So I guess, well, so you said, I guess no one really developed in React, but in most like UI-based development thingies, frameworks, you have what's called like a stateful reload. So what it means is I don't want to restart the entire app every time I make a small change, right? So and you could imagine like we could have navigated into like a very remote like screen inside the app, and then we want to update like a small text inside it. Like I don't want to restart the entire app and go back to that screen, right? So what the stateful reload means is, let's say we have 6 here, and I want to like just change, again, let's change the color to red. If I just save it, it will do a hot reload, it just tells you there, and it will actually keep that 6. So the entire app will stay the same. Just that thing you changed will be updated. Sometimes though, you make too many changes at once, or like you make the sort of changes that need to have the app restarted. Then you have what's called a hot restart. So you can actually see these buttons. So this is for hot reload, the lightning icon, and this refresh or restart icon is for the hot restart. When you click that, it only takes it takes less than 2 seconds to restart the entire app. You can see that 6 is gone, so we are starting from scratch. But I didn't really show you. I already had it open. But if you're trying to build the app from nothing, so if it's like closed, you just opened it. It takes like a minute or so the first time you do it. So this is really handy. A second instead of a minute is, well, if you have to do it like 30 times a day, it's half an hour saved from your entire day, right? So let's go back to that red, or sorry, blue. Just save for the hot reload to kick in. And this is kind of slower than usual because I'm streaming on Zoom, right? So it will be even faster on your machine probably. Anyway, so back to this like visual examination we're doing. So everything is here, contained here. And by everything, we mean this app bar, this stuff inside in the body section, and this floating action button. And in fact, if we take a more of an overview, you can see that's the 3 things I was talking about, right? We have this app bar, body, and floating action button, and it's contained in what's called a scaffold. Scaffolds are like the default, screen or page widgets. Basically, they take up your entire screen. They have like handy things like the app bar and whatnot. So this like it probably feels like a very specific thing to include, and it is. But the thing is, you don't have to use it. It's more like a helper thing. So even if I were to remove this app bar, I could just add the same thing to the body later. It doesn't break. It just doesn't show an app bar. That's it. Yeah, it's back. Okay. So let's start with the app bar and talk about how widgets sort of have like that hierarchy. So this is the parameter, and this is a widget called app bar. This is like a built-in widget that you have, and it takes many things. I don't think there are any required ones, but title is one of the ones you can provide. And here we are providing a text widget to it. And okay, so let me do it this way, and then just keep it simpler. Like just say title, right? You can hot reload, right? It says title here. So this is the sort of like widget hierarchy you have. You can keep passing things to each other. Here we have a more complicated like hierarchy. I will get to it, but this is like a 2-level thing. Or in fact, you could say it's like a three-level hierarchy, right? So you have the scaffold, then the app bar, and then the text. And in fact, since the app itself is also a widget, you have like a 4th layer, and it just keeps going. So let's try to get back. So widget.title. So what does that mean? Text, by the way, let's see what this takes, right? So you have a text widget, the text constructor shown here, and hold on. Yeah. So you can see it says string data, right? And then there's this curly brackets, and then it ends here. So like there's one argument or parameter outside the curly brackets, and that means it's a positional argument. So you just provide it without a name. But here you can see this as a named parameter, right? You say title equals this. In fact, if you don't give that, it will say there are no, try removing the extra positional arguments. So 0 allowed, 1 found. So you just say its name and then provide it. This is like the default in Flutter. You can, like when you're building your own like functions or classes, it's, I guess, a better practice to name everything. Or rather, they're all named. You just have to, so when you're creating it, here you can see putting it in the brackets means it is a named parameter, and that's why we have to call it like this. If I were to remove this and let's say put it here, right? So see, it says one position argument is expected but 0 found, because we gave it as like a named parameter. It doesn't have any, so first it doesn't recognize it, but then it also expects a positional one. It doesn't find it. So if we just change it to this, it will work exactly the same. And you can actually see this is like a, what's it called? Syntactic sugar, right? So you can just say this, the title in the constructor parameters, and it will know that you're referring to this. But let's take it back so as not to change it too much. Oh, and also you can't have like all positional arguments are required. So you don't say, you can't say required for a positional argument, but for these named ones, some are required, some are not. So you can choose to say, that. But then since this is final, it needs to be declared, blah, blah, blah. Too much detail, I guess. We will get back to it when we're writing our own app. So, if you're missing it, don't worry. So, okay, back to this scaffold we were talking about. So we have the app bar, we have the text, and this widget.title is this title that we're referring to. Why do we say widget.title? Because this is the state of this widget. And since this widget creates a state, they sort of know about each other, right? So this state knows what widget created it. It's like the parents of this state. And since this title is a field of the stateful widget, not the state itself, you just simply like call it from there. Like this counter is a variable we declared. So we just access it like normal inside this class. So that's what this is, and it is a string that we provided, and you can say you can see that it expects a string, blah blah blah. So why am I like this is an obvious thing, of course, like data types, but these things sort of change between like React, JavaScript, TypeScript, blah blah blah. So Flutter usually expects to know what you're passing, or at least it will warn you if it can't like decipher what it means. There are all these terms like strongly typed and whatnot. I'm sorry, I don't remember which is which, so I won't be able to say it that way. Anyway, so let's keep moving. This is the app bar, and this is the body. What is inside the body, or where does it? Like, which part is the body? So wherever this app bar ends, which is this line here before the shadow, from this line to the end of the screen, so here, that is where the body lies. In fact, I think we can do something like this. So if you say toggle debug painting, this is like the action palette in VS Code. If you're using VS Code, you know what I'm talking about probably. In Android Studio, I'm not sure how you do this, but you can just search for it. So okay, you can see this line, so this box like goes all the way up here and ends here. You have like all these sort of arrows, don't worry about them, but this is the part I was referring to. So this is like the column that we have here. I will talk about the bits in a bit, but it's just know about it. It's useful to to see sometimes when it ends, when you have like items without like background colors and whatnot. Anyway, so the body. In the body, the first thing we have is a center widget. If you remember, I referred to whatever centers this text. This is what I was talking about. You have the center widget that tells everything contained within it to be in the center of the parent container. The parent container being this space that is left by the app bar and the screen real estate we have. If we remove this, in VS Code, you can click command dots or command period to bring up this like action menu. In Android Studio, I believe it's command space. You will have to look it up. But if you click that, you can actually see like wrap it another widget or remove this widget. So removing, what it does is it will just take the child of that widget and place it instead. So if you had to load now, you can see it's not going to center there. it's sort of side, like maybe you expect it to go up here. The reason it doesn't do that is because of this line. It's not really important how you get it back, but this is the default behavior you will have. So because of something they specified, it wasn't all the way up here. But this is how you sort of do alignments in Flutter, right? You have other widgets to align things. In fact, they are called, like the parent class is called alignment. But center is like a special case of it. And if you wrap anything with the center widget, it will be centered within this container. So that's how you do it. A lot easier than centering the divs in web development. Right, so we have this column. So this center widget takes a child, but you can see this column takes children, a list of widgets. In fact, this is what this refers to. This is like an array that starts here of type widget. We can actually get rid of this, I believe. It will just like give like a soft warning maybe. In this case, it doesn't even do that because it knows these are widgets. But that's why it's here. They really like to make things more complicated than they are, just for the sake of being, just for the sake of completeness. But usually you can get away with much simpler code. Anyway, so you can pretty much see everything inside, right? So you have this const text. The reason it's const is because it will never change. So if you remove it, it will just give you a blue line, but the blue line is so annoying that you will want to take your time and type it out. Yeah, so it just has this. You can see there's like no special styling to it. This is like the default text you will have. But here we're referring to this counter we have right here. So this is how you do it. You could also do like this, since this is the only thing we want to show. So it's not like in a sentence, right? It's not within another string. So you could also just call this. But what they did here is the way, so like, let's say we want to have like count equals, right? Yeah, so that's how you insert variables inside strings. But let's keep it the cleaner way. Right, so, and then in this case, they also provide a style. And it's talking about like themes and whatnot. You don't need to worry about it. This is basically, you can declare like app-wide themes, which is very useful if you have like your own like sort of design language, like brand identity. You would be creating your own theme and then referencing like the headline for text style within it. This is just an example of that. Alternatively, we can create our own styles just by saying this, but there is an example of it in the second app we'll be looking at, so I won't go into it now. But if you remove it, you can see it just goes back to that state. So this is how you style things in Flutter, or at least texts. Right, so these are the only two things we have inside this entire body. So two text widgets contained in a column, which is contained in a center widget. And then this main X alignment is, so it in the case of a column, it tells you, where on this horizontal line it is. So if you say start, it will go, sorry, I mean, not horizontal or vertical. It will say, it will, so basically if you had a row, I won't do it now, but it's like, it changes for a row, the main axis is the horizontal one, and for a column, it's the vertical one. So if we change this to like cross axis alignments, which is the other one, so you have cross and main, it will come here. At least it should, yeah. So not here, but within the space that the column has, it does it here. So you can see that default was actually center, right, for cross axis. Just keep that in mind. I never like, I was never able to like remember what each one does. I always like try and learn again and again every time. Every time I need to make an alignment, I just do trial and error and get, until I get the right result. So, don't worry about it too much. And then the last thing we have is the floating action button. So this is also like a, how to say, like a help Flutter provides for you. Just placing this it's a really common thing to do. So they just give you this parameter, and whatever button you give it, they will like place it here. You don't even need to give it a floating action button, by the way. And this app bar, you don't need to give it an app bar. You can give anything. All these do is just like place it in that spot. But in this case, we do have a floating action button, which is also another built-in widget. And it's just, I mean, this tooltip isn't really important. So let me just remove it for now. You have this onPressed, which is a function that we have up here that we haven't looked at yet. And then you have a child, which is this icon. And you can see we are referencing an icon that's built in. And this built-in icon actually comes from here. So if you search for icons, let's say we want an icon that says add, you have this one, but you have all these variations. Like I know you could want to, maybe you want to add a picture, you know, you could say it that way. In this case, we just want a simple add, but you know, you could say, what was it called? So, okay, what you do is like you press whichever one you want, and then here you will have like all these different options. So it will actually give you this code, or just the ID, the stuff that you want to write here. So let's just copy this and change it here. And when we reload, it will give the one that's outlined, I believe. Why is it not reloading? Yeah, there we go. So it is really easy to change icons. You don't need to add any sort of like outside things for simple placeholder things, at least. You can though, like add more if you want. In fact, you could probably just go to pubdev, the thing I showed you, and like if you search for like if you I haven't done this before, so I hope it works, but yeah, so like whatever this is, this package is, you can just add it, and yeah, so these line icons, right? Is this font awesome? I guess it is, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, so this is like if you know font awesome, this is like a line version of it, I suppose. So you can really easily add stuff. I will show you how you do it. This pubspec YAML is what that's for, but not yet. But that's about it. So you can see like just putting stuff on the screen is really easy. In fact, let's actually put something else on it. So let's just say another text in this column, right? This list of children it has. Let's just say column, or sorry, text, and let's say Flutter workshop. And save it. Let's just gonna put it here. Really easy, really simple. It doesn't have to be a text, it could be anything, but I haven't really gotten into all the different types of widgets yet, so I don't want to confuse you further. Right, but in terms of drawing stuff, this is it. But in terms of like the interaction, we have this clicking. Here's how it works. So you have this onPressed property for the floating action button. I'm sure there are many others. Not for this one, I guess. Anyway, it just has this onPressed. And when you press it, we're telling it to call this function, increment counter, which is defined here. And all it does is increments this thing. Here's the catch. Here's how we use state, right? So when you press this button, two things need to happen, right? We first need to increase the actual variable, like increment it, but then we also need to tell the screen to show the updated value, right? So because this is just a widget, this like for right here is a text widget that reads the value of that counter, but it needs to know that that value was updated to redraw itself. So this is why we use setState, and the way Flutter does this is it will like check what changed, right? Or sorry, okay, let me put it this way. Flutter will try to do as few redraws as possible. So if nothing changed on the screen, it will just keep it the same. It won't try to reload anything, and which means like performance increases, right? So that's why you need to tell it to update. Basically, if you set the states of stateful widgets, it tells Flutter that we did some changes here, and I would like you to redraw this widget. It will then check, I believe, in the backend, what actually got affected by this set state call. In this case, only this is affected. And I think it's supposed to only redraw this. So these should stay the same, I believe. Sometimes it doesn't do what you expect. So if I actually remove it, it will probably still work. At least it did when I tried doing it. So you can see I'm pressing it. So it's probably like related to the animation of this button or whatever, right? So it already does an update. So it does like redraw itself. But just keep in mind, every time you do a change, you should do it in a set state. If you're changing the state in a stateful widget, provide this. I've said it like 5 times, but you're still gonna forget it, like, trust me. Yeah, but that's about it for this like, create app. That's a whole lot of stuff we covered, but this is the example they provided, and it's really good at showing you many things in a very like small package. But even though it's like only 60 lines, if we increase all of this, there are a lot of concepts. So if you're confused at this point, it's completely normal. And another completely normal thing to do would be to ask questions at this moment. So please do. I'm sure like there is no way you understood all of it. If you have, I'm extremely impressed. But if you haven't, go ahead and ask them. In the chat too, like I can wait a bit. Actually, let me catch my breath. Okay, I guess not many questions coming in. That's fine. But I guess, okay, let's see. What else can I talk about in this particular app? I want to make sure I covered everything before we move on to the next, because that will get more confusing. Anything you want me to show you, like maybe not a question, but like if you're wondering, can we do this, or how would you do this? That sort of question. How do we add something here? Like for instance, the type of thing you could ask is, how do we add an icon here, right? Let me just show you as an example. So let's say like actions, that's just like related to the app bar, it's called actions. You could provide a list of actions, which are like buttons. So in this case, you can just add, let's say, what was it called? Let's check what icons we had. Something about like a user profile, right? Let's say user account circle. Okay, that works. I'm showing like this because when I was like showing my friends how to do stuff, like they were confused. Like, okay, they understand where everything goes and why it goes there, but when it comes to like adding their own things, they sort of didn't get it at first, which I understand it's sort of confusing. So don't worry about this alignment, but we just added that there. We could have another one. So because this takes a list of widgets, you can just add as many as you want. All right, and we'll keep pushing them. So it's really easy. It's sort of like web development if you have done it before, in terms of like interacting with this environment you have. Or obviously if you have developed for like mobile using Swift, Kotlin, whatever, it's also very similar to that. Okay, I guess there are many questions coming in, which is fine by me. So I will show you like last final thing. I will show you how to remove this annoying and ugly debug icon or debug banner. Is there something in chat? Oh, okay, sure. So how the plus button is connected to text. Sorry, I missed the chat. Right, so let me remove this and collapse everything that's not related. Hold on, there we go, sorry. Okay, so there are 3 main things going on. So we have I guess 3. So we have this counter, which is the actual variable that holds the value that we want to show. Let's restart the app. So it starts from 0, it's at 9 right now. Okay, so you can see we initialize it with 0, and when we're trying to like write it in this text, it just reads that value, it reads 0. Then we want to increase it, increment it, so we press this button. How does this button know to increment the counter? What it does is we pass it an increment counter function that we have declared here, and when we press it, it's called. It doesn't take any arguments. All it does is this call right here. Basically, so I guess you've seen it, but just in case you haven't, what this means is this. This is like a shorthand for it. So increment the counter. And then you do this in a set state action or set state call, so that Flutter knows that there was a change in the value, in a value that concerns our state, our widget, and it redraws that widget, redraws the entire thing, or if it can, just this part of it. And since the value is now 1, it will show 1, and we can do it over and over again. We can spam it. It doesn't break, like it doesn't lag. So yeah, you don't need to worry about like these edge cases where like, what if I do it twice in a very short amount of time? I want that. In other languages, this might happen. So yeah, I think that's about it for the starter app. Like we have gone over a basic app structure. We have gone over stateless widgets, stateful widgets. If it wasn't clear, like let me repeat. So why did we use stateful widgets here? The short answer is because we have changes in the widget. So this text will change, and stateless widgets are immutable, so we can't really change them. We would have to like recreate the entire widget. In stateful widgets, we can just change parts of it. The stateful widget in this case being this entire screen. You could also have like a stateful widget inside a stateless widget, that's fine. Or you could have it the other way around. In fact, I believe this app bar is a stateless widget. Anyway, so like this text itself is a stateless widget, okay? It is contained in this stateful widget. So what happens is, okay, the stateful widget knows that this changed, but like the text itself is actually like thrown out and recreated. So this text widget like disappears and then it gets redrawn. You can think of it that way. But yeah, that's about it for the code part. This pubspec YAML file that you have, this is where you manage your packages. So it kind of looks like very complicated here, but most of it is just like explanations, which are actually kind of useful. But like, let's say, what sort of, okay, hold on. We have no packages here, so I'm not sure inside where we need to put it, but there is a shorthand for it. You can write like your dependencies by hand, or you can just say like Flutter pub adds, and then whatever package you want. In fact, we will be doing it in a second. Right. Should we take a break? Because it has been like 50 minutes of me just like talking. Or do you want me to continue? Can we like do a quick yes, no in the chat? Break, yes, no. Before we move on to the next app. Sorry.
Maybe we can give a break until 7 or 7, maybe a 10-minute break.
Okay, let's just go ahead and I'll start with a brief, like again, overview of what we just talked about. Just to remind yourselves, and if anyone comes a bit late, they won't miss much. So what did we do? We learned what Flutter is, why it's used. We created our first app and sort of went through what it does. We looked at the project structure. We were going to look at pubspec YAML. We will do that in a bit. But with this, the source code, we analyzed, what happens where. We saw that there are like 4 main parts of it. We have this run app part that's sort of just pre-built, so you don't need to think about it. We have the app itself, like launch or entry points for it, called my app. This, by the way, you can obviously change what this is called. In this case, we have my app, and then we call this my homepage, which is created here as a stateful widget, and it's like innards, its guts are in this build methods, and then we have some interactivity with the, hold on, my yes is stuck. I want to get rid of it. There we go. So we have some interactivity when we press this button. This increment counter is called, and we increment the counter variable. And then, since this is a set state call, Flutter knows to update the entire thing. Did I forget? Oh, I think I was talking about removing this, and I just like spaced out and did something else. So the way you do that is in the material app, you can say debug show check mode banner. Just type debug and look at the suggestion. If you say false, it will go away. It will go away. It did go away. Okay, so that's much prettier. It says now participants can now see your screen. Oh, I guess somebody just joined. Okay, that's fine. Right, so this was the starter app. Now we will start from scratch yet again, and we will work on something called the startup namer. So I do have all the code here. Like we have the official code. This is like my recreation of it, just slightly different. But this time I don't want to like show you a finished thing. Like I want to actually start from scratch and do it bit by bit. So let's not create a new app, or should we do it? Okay, let's just start from like literally from scratch. Let's say Flutter creates startup namer app. Like I have to give it a different name. Startup namer app. Let's create that. So while that's happening, let's see how like this is connected, like the simulator, how it's connected to this code, right? Because I haven't really explained that yet. So what you can do is, so this is the one we're running. So this main file, right? You can simply like right click it and press run without debugging. The others, don't worry about them right now. Like I won't even get to this tomorrow. All you have to remember is run without debugging. In VS Code, when you come here, it will probably try to do run code, which is different. You want this one. This will run this like as just plain Dart code. This will launch it like a Flutter app. That's the difference. So when you press this, it will launch your simulator, or if you have one that's already running, it will connect to that. In this case, we have an iOS simulator that's running an iPhone 13. And in fact, you can actually see it connected right here. In addition, you can see my iPad. Not only can you do this in a simulator, you can actually do it on your own device, on your own phone. Actually, that's the way I prefer doing it. Like if you just have a spare phone that you can just prop up, or like maybe just your own phone. What that means is your computer doesn't have to run an entire operating system just so you can see some like pages, right? It means there is going to be pretty much no lag when trying to develop, and it is very costly to run a simulator. But I'm doing it like this because yeah.
Do you have to scale the app for each different device screen size, or does it handle automatically?
It does handle it automatically. In fact, let's do it like a. So okay, when you click this, you can see all the different options. I can do like a Pixel 5, like an Android one. This is the one I have installed. But let's do something entirely different. Let's try looking for the web. So if I launch it again, it will take a while, like not too long, but maybe up to a minute. So this thing that I had, so this one, I believe, it's still running, by the way. I actually have 2 instances of this app right now. If I click this in the debug console, it will say like launching. But if I just change it back to this, we just have this app. So you can run as many as you want, I believe. This will be like very useful if you're trying to build like a messenger app and you need 2 devices, for instance, at once. All right, so Waiting for connection. Maybe I need to launch Chrome. I shouldn't need to. Anyway, let's let it do its thing. Maybe I could show you like this, how it rescales. Instead of launching it in a new thing, we can rotate the device, right? So maybe this kind of shows you. It knows it should be in the center. It knows this button should be over, like in the corner, right? So that's sort of how it works. I haven't really done a lot in Swift UI, but if you know like the old Swift, and you had like all those layouts, like rules and whatnot, it's not like that. You just tell it towards where you need it. You don't specify like, what's happening? What's happening? Yeah, you don't need to specify like 20 pixels from the screen edge and whatnot.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so you just tell it towards where you need. Yeah, there we go. So it will actually like even scale. There is a bit of a lag, but this is because it's like in a debug mode. It's just like a web page. So this is a cool thing, right? We have the exact same app, exact same code running in a browser and in a phone at the same time. Like this is the cool thing about Flutter. You can, I guess, do this in React Native as well, but not to the same effect, I believe. I haven't developed in React Native, by the way. If anyone has, and has some insight on that, they could share it. Right. So this is the cool thing. You can even like do a full native desktop app. Let's get back to I get this back normal, and then okay. So what's this? Widget inspector. We don't need it right now. And yeah. So you just select the device. If your simulator isn't running when you do it, I don't want to close it because it will take a while to launch it, but it will just ask you, where you want to run the app, and you will have the launch simulator option, or you can just launch it yourself, at least in Mac, and then for others, like for Androids, I'm not sure how you would do it in Visual Studio, but you can also install. And oh, actually, I do because it just showed it, right? But in Windows, you will have to figure that out on your own. Anyway, so let's continue and check this startup name wrap. So why is it? What's happening here? Okay, yeah, I know what's happening. So first of all, before looking at this code, let's stop the app, right? So if I click this, it will say exited, application finished. It's still going to run. It will still work. It's just not connected anymore. So you can actually, since this is an entire operating system just running on its own, and this app is installed, it will just work. But to debug and have the features like how to reload, how to restart, you do need to have them connected. Anyway, so we're done with the starter app. With the startup name app, which we just created, this is the exact same code. For some reason, it's not working, but this is the exact same thing we had, just with a lot of comments, basically telling you everything that I was just talking about. Right. So the reason this is happening is probably because of the package situation. So I guess I kind of interrupted it. It doesn't know all the dependencies, it doesn't have them right now. So let me just navigate to this folder, startup namer app. And then what we can do is we can run flutter pub get. This will get all the necessary, all the dependencies that we have. And hopefully it will fix it. It's probably because it doesn't have this package or it doesn't see it. Yeah, there we go. Just fix, just like that. So anytime you have weird errors like this, try saying flutter clean, flutter pub get, it will usually fix it. Or try relaunching, like with everything you do in computer engineering, just relaunch it. Okay, so what I want to do is let's open this. So if you go here, it's in one of the links I sent in the chat, or that are in the chat. This what we're going to do is just literally this tutorial. I have it sort of memorized, so I'll try not to confuse you by going here back and forth. But we will just copy this code and we will paste it in its entirety here. And then we will launch it and see what it does. So this time we need to again click, run without debugging, and wait a bit. So this is like what happens when you launch it for the first time. It will first of all like test your patience. Oh, see, we're actually still in the Chrome thing, so we don't really want that. Let's stop it. iPhone 13. And then again. Okay, this will take a second because it has to go through like Xcode and whatnot. If you have tried to do anything for iOS, you know how painful it can be. But that's also an advantage because like it is compiled to native code, so it does need like if you actually like, go here, you can see there's an entire like Xcode project in here, which is kind of cool. Sorry, I paused the share. While we wait, let's just try to see what this will do, right? So this is a much simpler app than we had before. All it has is a stateless widget called My App. And then you can see it's not even a, like you don't even have the material app. Oh, sorry, you do have it, but you don't have like a home page that's like defines and all of it, right? So it's so simple that we just wrote scaffold in this home parameter, and all it has is an app bar and a text that says hello world. So this is like the simplest app you could have, and I'm running out of words while this is happening. Right, it took kind of longer than I expected, but this is like you know, the developer's life, right? Just waiting for things to happen usually.
I might
But do we have to? Okay, you go first.
Oh, thanks. It came out of nowhere, but if you were to like have different pages of the app, how would you change in between those at Pi? Would it be the set change thing you mentioned?
So you could do it in a couple of ways. You could change this entire like home parts. You could say, okay, I want to keep the app bar. I just want to change like the body. So like the white space we had, like you could just change whatever is in there. Just think of it like you can change any widget, right? You could say like have an array of widgets, and you could like let's say you have a variable called current, like for the index, right? And you have an array of widgets, and you have a way to change that current index. It will like when you change it, it will just show you a different widget. And you could do that at any scale. You could do it for the home parts. You could do it for like the app bar. You could do it for this particular text. So since everything is a widget, you can manipulate everything in the same way. But usually, like if you're talking specifically about like navigating between different screens, like if you're calling it navigation, not just like it changing automatically and whatnot, then you have this thing called the navigator. Everything is like very obvious named in Flutter, which is nice. You just put, it's like, you could think of it like a stack. You push to the navigator to insert a new page, and you pop from it to go back. We will actually have an example of it tomorrow, but really quickly, maybe I could just, you know what? No, it will probably take a while. So let me not confuse everyone. But it's really simple, and it like handles like placing a back button and whatnot on its own. So like it will come if you click, like if you go to Hepsiburada, let's say, and click an item, like it will have an animation and whatnot. It handles all of that on its own. It will animate in a new page. It will place a back button if you want it to. Like you can disable it, but by default it does. When you click the back button, it will pop and whatnot. It's really easy to do. So easy, in fact, that I won't even, I wouldn't worry about it. Okay, but this is a very simple app, even simpler than the one we had before. And now what we will do with it is we will create something like this. So we will have dynamically generated like names for a startup. We will use a package for it, and we will have it inside a list that is infinite. So as you scroll, it will keep generating new ones forever. So let's get right to it. I will try to, so okay, 2 things. I will be looking to my old code like many times probably, but it's not because I don't remember. It's just I want to do it in the same way. And the reason I'm saying that is like you don't have to like do it in a certain way. Like you don't have to reference anything. You can just do what makes sense. I just want to do it as like close to that as possible. In case like you don't understand, you can go back and reference the actual tutorial they have. So if you're confused and think like, okay, but why did we do this exactly this way? Wouldn't this be easier? Just ask that, and we will probably be able to do that. With that said, let's start. So the first thing we want to do is we want to install this package called English Words, I believe. Let's check it. Yes, English Words. So what we will do is inside, let me close this. So this is the one we are concerned with right now. So we want to add a new package called English Words. This is what we will use for generating the names.
Can I ask something?
Sure, go ahead.
When writing a new app, do we have to start this way all the time? I mean, defining a stateless widget and then saying, widget build context, that stuff, or is it only valid for a certain type of app? Like, I don't know.
No, everything is a widget. Like this build methods, you will always have it. In terms of like, okay, so maybe it wasn't really obvious. I didn't really explain it, but this text widget also has a build method inside it. Like,
okay.
Right here, it's exactly the same method. So
okay.
We're not really doing anything special here. Everything will be built the same way. You can use other widget inside another widget's like build methods. You can think of this like in some kind of way. This is like placing the div inside of another div.
Okay.
If you have that, yeah. Right. So, but this like run app parts, like you will always have like this one central or like one root widget that won't change. But then, so you will have at least this material app inside this build method. But then if you choose to do so, you can declare everything else in this body. So you can create a new widget. It's like you can just say, okay, I have a center inside this. I have like a container inside the container. I have this. And all you have done is just you create that widget on the fly without like making it like another class of its own. So you would do that when you don't plan on reusing something. But if you want to have like pages that are well defined, we have a home page, we have a settings page. You would want to create like components for it, right? That you can reuse. So you create a class that will return like a specific set of widgets or like a specific build thing. So that's why we did it that way the first time. But this is like the simplest thing you could do.
Okay, I see. And what does stateless widget mean exactly?
It's like so it doesn't have anything that mutates inside. Okay, sorry, no. No. Let me put it this way. It doesn't have any variables it keeps track of that are going to change. So it is immutable, but you can still have things that are mutable inside it. So think of it like a immutable array, right? But you can have something in that immutable array that actually mutates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. So you can have like a final thing here, like final title and whatnot, and like use it later on, but you can't have anything that changes. It won't show it even if you somehow change it. You will have to reload the entire screen so that the widget gets redrawn from scratch. Right, so the first thing we want to do is, I kind of forgot, I did this like 3 hours ago and I'm still not remembering. Okay, did I do Flutter get? No, I just added the dependency, so I added the package. So let's actually pull it. Flutter get will update everything for us. In fact, you will need to like install the Flutter extension, and what that does is it does add like a button here or it should, unless I disabled it. I think like if when you have a change, you will have a button appear here that says, run Flutter get, but you can just do it here as well. So we're done with that. We can import that, and I'll just copy the statements. Import this. We won't use it just yet, but let's keep it here. It says it's unused. All right, so let's get rid of this first. And then let's say, I know, what should we name it? Let's name it random words. I think that's what they called it. So we will want to create a widget called random words, but we don't have it yet. So let's create it. Create class random words. Oh, it's okay. So it does need to extend stateless widget. Right now it's just a class without, an empty class. We want it to be, we want this to be stateful because we will have things changing, right? We will be generating new things. So extend stateful widgets. And in fact, an even easier thing we could do is just, again, if you remember from the beginning, just say this, and then it will place cursors all over. And when you say random words, it will just create everything for us. By the way, I didn't mention this. When you put an underscore here, it means it's a private variable. That's like the private keyword in Java, the same thing. And states really should be private. You shouldn't be accessing states without having the widget itself. So that's why it's that way. I believe this is unnecessary. Yeah, okay. And it's complaining because, yeah, so you can see it's black, right? Why is it black? Because we haven't, all we have is a container here. So there is no app, no scaffold to speak of. We just deleted all that. So let's bring it back in. So we will start the scaffold. Should we have an app bar? Let's have an app bar. So let's start with that. And let's say title. You will have some text that will say, I guess, startup name generator. Okay, let's save this. Let's format this. You can't, I think you have like, where is it here? Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess it's in the command palette. You could say Darts format or formats. I guess it doesn't show up here, but I have it like bound to Command-Shift-F for the Dart formatter that comes with Flutter. You will want to use that to format stuff like all around. When you see like things just changing places, that's what I'm doing. I'm just formatting it. Okay, but this works really easy. We just have an app bar. Now we need a body. And let's start with just, I know, let's see what it looks like. It's just some text. So let's just say hello. And there you go, it's there. So what we want here is something like this. We want many list tiles, right? We don't just want this one text, we want many of them. And what we can do is we can do something like a column. Let's start with that. And sorry. And then you can have a text here. Let's say just text. And then I can have as many as I want, like this. But the problem is, if I just keep adding these, okay, that's enough. A couple more. I want it to like overflow. You will see a danger sign. It says render flex overflowed by 245 pixels on the bottom. You can inspect widgets. It will show you the widget inspector, which is like if you have done web development before, it's like opening the saying inspect element. It's pretty much the same, but it shows you that there is an overflow. Something's not on the screen. Plus, we can scroll this. Like we want to be able to scroll this in the thing we're trying to build. So let's go back and try something else. Instead of having a column, we can have a list view. This is a built-in widget that will handle scrolling and you can see that this appears because it is supposed to overflow, or it's supposed to be able to overflow. And you can see, you can scroll. It has all these nice physics. When you go up, it has this like springy effect. So that's really nice. Let's delete all these. It can also be empty, I believe. Yeah. Let's just have like name 1 and name 2. Right. So how do we? So this is nice, right? We have a starting point, but we have sort of a couple of problems. First one being, we don't have infinite number of names, and those names, the second one being, those names aren't generated in the way we want, right? So let's tackle the first one. I'm just trying to understand why this. Okay, so this is the const thing. It's crying because these are all constants, and it prefers to add this. Like, so you could. What I'm trying to say is you could add this here, but since all of them are constant, you can also just pull it here. And in fact, if you add them both, it will say unnecessary constant. Just watch out for that, because they will rack up. See, like here we already have 5 problems just because of constants. That's why I told you they're annoying, because they really, you will see, like we had like 80 at some points in an app we're developing just because of these. So I'll keep it this way for now because we will change them. This one we can have as const because that won't change. But now let's see how could we like have more, or how do we create like elements from a list of strings, right? Because we won't be typing these out one by one. We want to have like a list of names that's like turned into text widgets or some widget that can show a string, right? So a way you could do it very simply is, let's say inside the state we have like an array of names that goes like 1, name 2, right? So this is all fine. How do we turn this into this? So one way you could do is simply use a mapping function. I'm sure you have seen them, and in Flutter it's really not anything different than what you would have anywhere else. So since this list of children parameter, it expects a list of widgets. You can actually see it here. So as long as we map these to a list of widgets, we'll be fine. So let's see what that looks like. Names.map. So once you click it, you can see this is just a simple lambda, right? So you have E, which is, since we're doing it on names, this and this, and it will turn to null right now. We don't want that. We want it to become a widget. So we say text, just E, because it's already a string, right? You can just give a string to the text. It still complains because when you're mapping, well, you're using an iterable, right? It's not a list yet. So we have to collect it into a list. Like if you have done this in Java, it's still a stream. You could think of it that way. And now when we do this and reload, you can see it's right here. And when we add more to it, I'll just add the same one. It will just keep adding. What's up now? That's weird. Okay, let me hot restart. So this is the sort of, yeah. See, I was expecting it to work, but for some reason, this sort of change didn't, like, it wasn't able to detect it in a simple hot reload. So things like this, like weird behavior like this, is when you do a hot restart and it fixes it. Let me format this, and then let's talk about how we could generate this list from this package, because that's what we ultimately want to do. But before we do that, this doesn't really look like this. Like this is much nicer, right? You can, with your fingers, you can actually click this, but here, if this was on a screen, you wouldn't be able to like select any one of them. So let's do some styling changes here. And instead of map, there is like a, okay, so maps are useful when you do a very simple thing like this. But now, since we want to customize like how these look like, this will just keep growing, right? Because to this text, we will want to add a style, which will be its like own long thing. So we will ideally have this in a function. So I'll keep this for now so that it works. But here, let's add something called, let's say, a function that returns a widget called build suggestions, right? The startup name suggestions. So we, instead of creating children here, we will just call build suggestions instead. So let's say, let's take this and put this here and return it instead. Will this work? Oh, hold on. Sorry, because this is a single widget, right? What I actually wanted to do was not just that part, but the entire body I want here, and return it. I'm missing will this work? Right, okay. And then we call this here. I'm just like making it simpler to work with. Right, so this is exactly the same. We just did some refactoring. It's giving errors. What am I missing? There we go. Okay. So this is actually working now. Right. So this last one means it's working. Right. And then what I was just talking about, not having this map here, we can create another one that returns another widget, and we call let's build row. It will take something, but hold on for now. So build row will say return, let's say text widget for now, and its name. So we haven't implemented generation yet, so let's just have it return something fixed. But here we want to use this instead. So how can we do that? Let's, for now, just for the sake of showing you how you can like create widgets and have some code, have some logic, let's have a list of widgets. So instead of creating this list right here, let's say say final widgets or rows is more appropriate. And let's say this is a array of widgets, right? And then we will call rows here, right? So obviously this is going to be empty now because rows is empty. We will need to add stuff to this here, and we can simply say, in fact, let's have a string here. So string str, and let's put this string here because we already have like this test thing, right? Let's say 3, get rid of the rest just to make it cleaner. And let's say just a simple for loop or enhanced for loop for name in names. You can do this in Flutter, just like in Python. For name in names, rows, you have to specify. So you either say var for it to be like a dynamic type, or since we know it's going to be a string, you can just say string. So rows dot add, and you can say, we can call build row that we just wrote with its name. Right, so what's going to happen now once I reload is it just works. But then again, since I updated this by hand, it didn't recognize it. So let me just hot restart, and there we go. Is it still scroll? Yes. Okay. So you can see we have like widgets or functions that return widgets called inside another function that returns a widget, and there's some code in it. So this is like, you can think of it like JavaScript and HTML like together, right? It's like TypeScript or JSX, if you know what those are. So what we're doing again, we have this random words widgets. We have some names, example names here. We have this build function that builds the entire widget, but inside it, we build the body with this constructor. So you can have like a class that returns that has a build method and returns like a widget defined in there, or you can simply like create a widget on the fly with a function. So this is like the third way you could create widgets, in addition to what I described before starting. So, okay, what happens then is, so we call build suggestions. It creates a widget list called rows. It loops over the names defined here, and for each creates a row, adds a row to this rows variable, and then this list view shows them, which is fine. Something weird that you might have noticed is this is final, but I'm able to add stuff to it, which is weird. I'll agree, but it's the logic behind that, I believe, is like the widget itself or the variable itself didn't change because it's like a list class, right? It's a list object, and the list object has an add function. So that's the way it kind of works. We didn't really mutate what this is. We just interacted with it. Okay, so how do we generate the actual words, right? Let's give that a try. So instead of having this like predefined, let's keep it empty, and what we will have is something called a word pair, and this word pair class is defined in this package that we just installed. So it will complain here. That's fine. We'll get back to it. But let's say here we don't have names yet, right? So let's populate names with something. So we can say add all, which is just a list function again, just like add here. You could add many things at once. And in this package, you have something called generate word pairs. And it has some things that we can use. We don't really need them. This will return an iterable, and from this iterable, we want like, let's say 3. So basically what we're doing is we're calling this and taking 3 from the results, like the first 3 elements from that. Right, so the problem right now is we have what are called word pairs, which is like a custom class, but we're thinking it's a string and we're using it like a string. So we have to change that a bit. So let's make it so that this takes a word pair. This we now know to be a word pair, so we will change that too. And it won't complain except for here, which is fine because text expects a string, but this is a word pair, so we can either convert this to string, which is what we'll start with, and when we reload, this time, where did we forget to? Okay, this is another case where I will try a hot restart first. Right, now it works, yeah. Because again, I kind of did some changes here. So you can see it works. We have 3 of them. We don't have an infinite number yet, but it's fine. One other thing we can do is instead of using this toString, the word pair class has this, hold on, use Pascal scale? No, hold on, I forgot. As Pascal scale, sorry. As Pascal scale, which is like all words capitalized in the first letter, the initials capitalized. So yeah, this is what it looks like. Okay, and we have 6 now because every time this is called, it will keep adding which is fine. Ideally, I guess, oops. We should probably have it here. This should only happen once. No, okay. Anyway, it's fine because this is only temporary. Right, put it back there then. And hot restart, so we only have 3. Okay. Cool. So what else? The thing is, we can have like 300 here if you want. Reload. Yeah, the way I've done it is, oh no, okay, it works anyway. So we have like 300 of them here. So 2 things: we still haven't fixed the style, and we will still run out of them at some point. We actually want to have it infinite. We don't want to say 10,000, so it's kind of like infinite. We want to generate them on the fly. So first, let's fix the style a bit. We can do it easily now because we have this build row method. And if you just change things in here, it will update the rest of them. So first of all, let's use something called a list style. And now again, I'm using the command periods shortcuts, which is, I think if you right click, I'm not sure which one it is. Anyway, so if you do this, you can either wrap with like these common widgets, padding, column, whatnot, or you can just wrap with widgets and then specify something. So all it does is basically like just writes this out for you. So it puts whatever you have selected inside this child parameter. What we want is a list style, and list styles don't have children or childs, but a title. This is just like one of the widgets Flutter provides. We're just using it. You don't have to use it. It just makes it easier. If you reload this, you can see the text is larger and there's more space between everything. In fact, I think we can increase the text size a bit more. And the way we could do that is, so to the text part here, we can give a style. Let's say text style. This is the way you do it. And inside this text style, you can specify a bunch of things. So this is like your CSS, right? We want to use font size right now, just to increase the size a bit. So font size, I think defaulted, or this is like 16. Let's make it 18. When we reload, yeah, it's a little larger. It kind of looks ugly right now, but keep in mind you would have to click this with your fingers, right? So with your thumb. So that's why it looks a bit large on this desktop environment. This wants to be a constant because it won't change. That's why the blue line is there. And what else? Yeah, okay. The styling is more or less done. We will add like dividers here later on, but we first need to do something else. And that something else is actually making this list infinite. So, okay, let's think about what we need to know to make this infinite, right? Before we like figure out how we keep adding new stuff, which won't be like too difficult, right? Because we know we can add. Let me actually decrease this a bit. So let's say 50, right? We know how to add new stuff, right? I've actually done it like unintentionally. Every time I do this, it will make the list longer. But the thing is it's actually 50. It still feels like 300. Hold on. Hot restart. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm at the end of the list. And to add more things, I need to know that I'm at the end of this list, right? But how will we know this? Like I can't, in terms of like programming, I can't just say, okay, look at the screen and if it runs out, add new stuff. And really, when you think about it, the only thing that is aware that you're here is the list view itself, right? Like this app bar doesn't know, this parent widget doesn't know, but the list view knows. And in fact, that is the list view itself is what we will be using to add more things. So what do I mean by that? Right now, we're using just the default constructor for list view, but there's actually something called, let me put it this way. So this is like default constructor, right? What it wants is optionally some children that it can draw. But also you have this other constructor that you can use called list view builder. And what it wants is an item builder function. So this is just like, if we just read this, what it says is, sorry, this one, creates a scrollable linear array of widgets that are created on demand. This is exactly what we want, right? This constructor is appropriate for list views with a large or infinite number of children, because the builder is called only for those children that are actually visible. But this is perfect, right? This is the exact use case that you want. And this last part, that are actually visible parts, if you have done like game development before, you will know that like when the player looks at something, I mean, obviously those things are rendered on the screen, but the stuff behind you isn't rendered for performance reasons. It's like not even loaded, right? Maybe. This is the exact same thing. When we use this item builder in a bit, not only will it keep generating new stuff, it will actually like unload the old stuff that's not visible, which will increase performance. Like because if you think about it, having an infinite number of elements is going to be pretty difficult for the computer, right? Pretty much impossible. So that's also handy. And what we will do right now is go over here, because I don't exactly remember what it takes. Copy this bit and go back. Right, so the item builder, it's supposed to be a function. So we can see it's a function that returns a widget and takes a build context and an integer. The build context, you don't really need to worry about it. This is just like for referencing each other. You never actually use this. You just need to pass it sometimes. But this integer is the index of the current element. So how does that work? So let's say we have this function. Sorry, I need to delete this. Okay, so right now it doesn't return anything, but let's just say, let's make it return some text. There we go. Okay, so what's going on here? First of all, you can see it's already like creating many of them. I didn't tell it to create a specific amount. It just knows to do that because it has an item builder. In fact, I could scroll infinitely here and it will just keep creating. So we already have the infinite part down just by creating this list with a builder, which is pretty cool. But then we sort of need to take what we did here, like with the word pairs and having our like custom rows here, and sort of use this here. But before we do that, let's try to understand how this I thing works, right? So I is the index of the current item, current being the one that the list view is trying to create at the moment. So if we say to string, what we should expect to see is a list of increasing integers, right? So this is the first item, this is the second item. That's what the I refers to. By the way, you could name this anything. It just wants an integer and a build context. Like it doesn't say what their names should be. Obviously, you should change this here as well. But I'll keep it I just for simplicity. Okay, so we can already see that we can use this index of the elements to sort of do special things with it, right? We can write the right number in the tile. Well, we can already guess that we can also use that index to take one of the words in the list. So let's see what happens if we try to do that. So instead of this custom text, we can actually just use this word pair thing, the build row thing we already done. And instead of what we did here, we can just say names I. So this will like do the same thing. So naming names and looping over the names with like just like this, it's going to be the same. But when we hot restart it, something interesting is going to happen. Not right away, but first of all, we should see. Right, so it works. We have we have about 50 names here, but well, 50 exactly because we created 50, right? But then this will keep increasing. It doesn't know to stop at 50. And what will happen is, if you go past it, you will run into a red screen like this. So it says, it's kind of cool that like it just keeps going and like this stuff is here, it still works, but you have this error. Why is it? Anyway, it was kind of moving on and so on. So something that's cool in Flutter is you will have this exact same error in your debug console, but it will also just show you right in the UI, which is very, very useful. So like a React app will just not work. It will just show you the error on the screen, but not where it's supposed to be. It will just like crash right away. But here you can actually like have widgets showing errors visually, which is kind of cool. But it's pretty obvious what it says. We are using this is the index that we try to call it with, and it's not between 0 and 49. So let's fix that somehow. We saw that when right, so this item builder will just keep increasing I, right? So something really simple that we could do is just check if I is larger than this range, right? If it exceeds this range, we can keep adding more things. So let's say we just add 15 at a time, because 50 is kind of a lot. Like for 50, we have to scroll a lot. But ideally, we just want to add a couple each time. Okay, let's restart. And what we're going to do is we'll copy this. Let's restart. Why is this not aware that it has restarted? There we go. So we will run into the same problem, right? So we only have 15 this time. So the same thing. But since we can keep track of I, we know what it is, we can simply just say if I is larger than or equal to names.length, add 15 more. Simple as that. And then we're pretty much done. So keep adding more and more. Every time I exceeds this the length of the names list, it will just keep adding more to it. The thing is, actually, no, I'm skipping ahead a bit. Let me just clean up some stuff here first. So first of all, we don't really need these anymore, right? So we are not actually using this rows thing anymore. Here we were creating a list of widgets called rows that were sort of like statically displayed in a list view. Now we have an item builder that does this on demand, and we don't need this at all. It's not even connected to anything. And really, since when the list is first shown, or like when the list starts, the index is 0. Even if we didn't have this, so it will be 0. It is equal to the names.length, which is 0 as well when it starts. So we don't really need to add like the first 15. It will just work without the initial sort of creation, which is great. The most impressive thing with this for me is like how seamless it is, right? You don't even notice any lag. There's no loading screen. It just knows how fast it will be able to like do it, I guess, or it just leaves like enough like breathing room there so that you don't notice. Any lag you see here is just like simulator plus like zoom. If you actually had this on your phone, there will be no loading animation, as long as you're doing something simple like this. If you're waiting for like a network call, which we will be doing tomorrow, then we will have loading, a lot of loading. But here it's very fast. Right, so one more thing we can do here to reach this state is, you can see there are dividers here. Let's see what that looks like. So it's basically another practice in like using this I. We have something called a divider. What they are using is just this. So we need to add that sometimes. And a really easy way to do that is we can just check if I is odd, right? And if it's odd, we can just say return divider. So what's happening is this item builder is choosing what to return. It doesn't necessarily have to return the same thing every time. You can have some logic here, which is nice. When we reload this, you can see we have all these lines. We can customize them a bit. You don't really need to. I think this looks fine. Just for the heck of it, I guess. Thickness. Let's make it a little bit thicker, like 2 pixels or 2 points. Or what does it actually want? Yeah, it wants a double. Yeah, we can make it a bit more visible as well. What else? So there is some error in this logic because what happens is we're basically skipping like all the odd numbers or the odds like indexed word pairs in here. So something we could do is, so you can see their solution is to do something like this. This is like a floor division. So basically what will happen is, so if I is 0, we will come here and this will divide 0 by 2, which is 0. If it's 1, it will add this. Right, okay, if it's 1, it will just add this because it's odd, but then when it becomes 2, we still want to add the element that's indexed 1 in the names, right? Because we haven't added that yet. So it will, well, for 1, it's very obvious. It's still going to be 1. Sorry, it's going to be, I'm not sure how this, hold on. Anyway, I'm confusing myself here. Basically what it does is it will loop over everything. So if you have like 3, it will add, if you have like the 4th thing or the 5th thing, it will add 2. If you have, yeah, index 5, it will amount to 2.5. It will just round it down to 2 and you will be adding everything. Okay, so one last thing in terms of style. You can see it doesn't go all the way to the edges, right? Which kind of looks ugly here because it does. And like this starts from here, but then these go all the way to the edges. And the reason that's happening is, that's difference is at least, is because we haven't like, wrapped this list in any sort of padding. It doesn't have any margins. It just like goes all the way to the edge. What we can do is, where is my, yeah. So this is the list view, right? So in builds here, so in build suggestions, we're creating this list, right? Just remind ourselves, it has an item builder function here, but this is just a widget in itself, right? So we can put this in something else. In this case, we want to put it in a padding widget. Rapid padding. So you have a padding and its child is that list view. And by default, when you create it like that, it will add padding all around. If we reload it again, you can see it did come down a bit, and then there are spaces here. Let's say one like 16. Right? So there is a bit more space. I don't like this space here though. So instead of adding it everywhere, what we can do is say symmetric and horizontal. We can specify 16 and don't give any vertical padding. Yeah, there we go. or you could just specify a different value. So let's say it does look kind of close. So let's say like 4 here, 4.0. Okay, so this, I believe this change, and if we remove this is exactly what they have done. So yeah.
Does the pattern also accommodate to rotating the screens?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go to your simulator, it will be different for like the Android simulator. But here you just do this. Like you have to explicitly tell the app that it cannot do this. You have to disable it. By default, it will work. Right. There are a couple of. Okay, so let's do this. There are more things I want to show you, like another 15 minutes or so. But this is like the gist of it. The things I'm going to show you are like, I guess, optional. We will go through similar things tomorrow, but we will customize this a bit, basically. And I will show you actually an error that is here that you cannot actually see in action at the moment. So before we switch to that, it's fine if you want to leave. Thank you for staying so far. But also if you have questions, shoot them.
I have a question about hot restart. So basically, when we change anything, not all times, but let's say often, we need to do a hot restart. So is this because of we are doing it all from the computer, or if we try it from our phone, for example, as you said in the beginning? It would be easier to refresh, or should we need always the hot restart for just catch up what we did?
Okay, so hot reload. So you have the hot restart and hot reload. Hot reload is the one I'm doing more often. Basically, every time I make a change. Hot restart is for like larger changes that Flutter cannot figure out on its own. But hot reload you will be doing every time because, okay, so I was explicitly pressing it every time just to like show you as it changes, right? But usually I'll just have autosave on, and every time I type, it will just update it. You can see like, I know, I guess it does do some filtering, but
yeah, I saw this before.
Yeah. So okay, if you save again, it will like do it. But usually, what you have is you have autosave on, and not really worry about like saving it on your own, and then it just keeps updating. It's like even for the most minor thing, you need to do it because you're telling the connected app to like update itself. Because technically, it's a different app now, right? Now that you added something to it. What's running on the device is like it has a different source code, like it has an older source code, so you need to update it. So it doesn't matter if you're on your phone or in the simulator, it's the same thing. When I say it doesn't matter, and it's literally the same thing, like I mean it 100%, because what this is it's an actual operating system. Like it's like a virtual machine, you can think. Like you can like I know go on the internet and log into like Facebook on this. It will actually do it. Yeah, so that doesn't change. What changes between hot reloads and hot restarts is no, let me just not even get into that. Yeah, but the answer is yes, you have to do it all the time. Short answer. Okay, any other questions? Welcome. Okay, so I guess if there aren't any, if you come up with any, just interrupt me. But I'll add a couple of like improvements here. First of all, let's remove that ugly banner. Debug show chat mode banner. Let's say false. So this like lag isn't because of Flutter. It's literally because I'm on Zoom, and plus I'm doing this. So usually it's not this slow. In fact, it's just now it was able to update it. But that's fine. We did that. Now let's. This blue is kind of boring, isn't it? So maybe let's try to customize that. In the first tab, we had like it said blue somewhere, but now we don't see it. And the reason for that is because we haven't actually specified a theme here. So in this material app, you have this theme thing. In fact, you can specify like a dark theme as well, but that we won't get into it now. It's like for the system dark mode. Or you can specify as many as you want. Like you can dynamically choose from a theme. You can, if you have like 5 themes designed for your app, go for it. But now what we want to do is we're kind of adding to the existing theme a piece of theme data. And what we'll add is a primary swatch. And we will make it, let's say, I think there was a nice purple, this deep purple, I believe I liked. Comma. Come on. Why is it not happy? Oh, so yeah, so because this is const, it used to be const, but this isn't, it threw an error. That's what that was. You can see instantly it's purple, but what is this primary swatch thing, right? I mean, we're not telling the app bar to be purple specifically, but instead what we're doing is we're telling the entire app or all the children under this material app that their primary color, whenever they want to have some color, it should be purple. Text color is different, so text won't purple, but like the primary background color, you can think. One way to demonstrate that will be if you add a floating action button here, just like before. Sorry, not here. From here, comma, another parameter, floating action button. So again, that built-in widget is what we will use. Do we need to give it anything? I guess it wants an onPressed, right? Yeah, so the name parameter onPressed is required. So we can fix that easily. Add required arguments onPressed. And it will just be a function. So just like before, with the increments counter, if you remember, we need to give it a function. We can just like give it an anonymous function here, but instead let's actually write something. For now, let's just see it on the screen first. Right? So it's going to be like this. You can see it's empty, but I can actually click it. Empty in terms of it doesn't have an icon. So maybe first let's add that, and we should really think about what we want to do with this, right? Oh, the entire reason I was doing this, by the way, was to show you that this is purple. I forgot to mention that. So this is coming from the primary swatch. So that out of the way, let's add an icon here. Let's say, let's use this to like refresh the list of the names. So we can add a refresh icon. Obviously, just adding a refresh icon won't make it refresh, but we'll get to that in a bit. So, oh, sorry, it's not called an icon, it's called a child, I believe here. Yeah, because you don't have to give it an icon, you can give it anything. You can, like, it could be a text, right? It's taking its sweet time, but will it work? Yeah, there we go. So it's a refresh button now, but we don't have any sort of functionality. So let's think about how we would go about doing it. The thing is, refreshing really means recreating this list, right? But, oh no, okay. So what I wanted to do was like give myself an error by having it here first. But then I guess I already did it in the state. So, okay, the point I was gonna make was that I failed to do so is it's a good idea to keep this list of names here, just reachable from the entire widget itself. so that when we want to refresh, we can do something like this. Let's say a void function that doesn't return anything. Let's call it refresh, no arguments, or no parameters. And then what it should do is simply we call it names, right? So we want to have it become an empty list. But oh no, it will give an error because it's a final variable. So this is what I was talking about, right? We can't change what is contained in the list because lists allow that. You can call a function of it, but we declare this as a final variable, so we can't change what it is. Instead, what we can do is we can use the clear method instead, right? So hopefully, when we actually give this new function to the onPressed, do some formatting, make sure it's loaded. Now, hopefully, it should work, but it doesn't. The reason why is, if you had been paying attention, it should be obvious. But as I told you, you will forget the reason that it happens. Does anyone remember? Does anyone know why it doesn't work? It's a really easy fix, but something that we had to remember. Okay, maybe this will be a clue. So you can see the first one right now is clear meal, right? Let me refresh. An interesting thing will happen. If I scroll like this and come back up, or maybe I didn't scroll enough. Okay, yeah. So if I just scrolled a bit and then when I returned, it was different. It became gold pop. We can do it again. So if I scroll a bit so it's out of view and then come back in, it's going to change. Why does this happen? Does anyone have an idea? What happens when this goes out of view? Think of what this does. What happens to the things that disappear? They are unloaded, right? They're not there anymore. This item builder actively removes it from the view, and when it comes back in, it recreates it, because we don't want to draw the things that are invisible, because we have an infinite list here, right? If we as we go along, the list does in length, it increases, but if we had everything loaded in, it will get pretty slow pretty fast, right, as we create new items. So what it does is it unloads it, but then when we reload it back in, it has changed, because when we click this button, it actually does work. It actually does go and clear this names list, and then this builder does add 15 new things here. But the reason you're not seeing a change is because we haven't told Flutter that a change has occurred. So what we had to do was we had to use a set state call. So this is what I meant. This is what you usually forget, and then you get really weird behavior like this. And if you save this now and click this button, you can see pretty instantly everything changes. So that's the final thing I want to show you for today. That's all, unless you have questions. I guess not. In that case, thank you for listening to my sometimes unintelligible rambling, but I've tried to do my best to explain some basic concepts, and I believe with all of this, you will be able to create some custom apps of your own, which is actually our homework for today. So tomorrow, I mean, it's completely optional, of course, but tomorrow we'll take some time to showcase some of the apps you've created, if anyone has done so. I encourage you to try to install Flutter, because when was it, the 12th, right? The hackathon itself. It's a really good idea to try it today before, while you still have some time to iron out some issues. And tomorrow, we can test it live, right? To see if it works. I encourage you to do things like this. Maybe you can play with like how this generation works, or you could start from scratch. Maybe, I know, have your name written on the app bar. The sky is the limit, right? But right now, you know the basics. I haven't showed you like some alignment things, like how to create columns and rows like together. We can do some of that tomorrow, some layout stuff. But you should still be able to create like pretty basic like text and whatnot. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, if anyone happens to have questions later on, they can connect us through, I think, Discord or email Bora personally.
Yeah, this is my email. I think I'm not in Discord. Maybe you could add me there, or send me an invite link. I can be online there as well. I hate Discord, to be honest, but I will do it for you.
Thanks. Okay, so see you tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah, see you tomorrow.